great city.
All right. Happy Friday, everyone. We got the dream team. We got Sean Raible from Game Plan CA, and we got Dave Carhart from People Catalyst, two amazing comp and benefit experts who are also my friends. And so this will be a fun jam session. But we have a pretty cool topic today, beyond the paycheck, really designing compensation and total rewards in 2025. What do employers want? What do employees want? What's the American perspective? What's the Canadian perspective? Is there any difference there? We're going to dive into all of that. But let's jump in with a round of intros. Dave, you've been on the webinar before, so we're going to start with you. Dave Carhart, based out of San Francisco Bay Area, runs People Catalyst. It's a compensation and consulting agency. But Dave, anything else you want to share about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I spent my career in a variety of HR leadership roles, led the people team at several different startups, and also have gone through IPO and successful acquisition. And yeah, now work with a wide variety of growing and mid-market companies on compensation and other topics.
Amazing. And next up, we have Sean. First time, but hopefully not the last time. Sean Raible from People Catalyst, based out of Vancouver, British Columbia. I know, Sean, you work with a lot of clients from Best Buy to like startups, but please share a little bit more about your background as well.
Sure. Yeah. So thank you for letting me jam here today. So I'm Sean from Game Plan. So we're in Vancouver, BC, Canada. We have clients, US and Canada, where we do everything from job architecture, pay bands, variable pay, exec comp, and then we get into the benefit space and kind of total rewards solutions. But we also play in the HR technology space of helping organizations either optimize what they have or go shopping. So kind of total rewards and HR. I've been doing this consulting for about 5 years. And we work from startups, nonprofits, all the way to large multinational organizations. But prior to that, 20 years in-house, doing total rewards and systems work, probably hit 34 countries in terms of the global reach and work. And I've done Workday several times, success factors. I've done global career frameworks multiple times. And to me, it's all about, at the end of the day, about the people, right? If you can design great programs, but how do you implement them? How do you execute them? How do you really understand how does this land for somebody at the paycheck, right? When they actually receive, right? So that's kind of the work. But yeah, 20 years in-house, so that helps me understand what does it mean to be in an HR team, in an organization, designing and implementing programs. So I'm happy to be here and share my knowledge, from north of the border, but I also represent US clients as well out in New York. And there are some similarities, but there are some nuances for sure. So.
Okay, so we will definitely ask you about some of the nuances. Do you get maple syrup as a benefit or not? But
wow.
Let's start with the State of the Union, though. So it's 2025, and employee expectations are ever changing. Dave, what is the current State of the Union, and what are current employee expectations? Can you start us off?
Yeah, well, look, competitive pay is table stakes. As particularly so in an era of pay transparency, where organizations are sharing directly, or people, even if not, they can go online, they can see a whole range of information. So you have to get it right. If you get it wrong, obviously you have issues, but it's not enough to just get competitive pay right. People know that however great the relationship is and however wonderful the opportunity is, you're not their last employer. And so they're thinking also about the long term, what sort of development, what kind of skills are they going to gain? What kind of opportunities are they going to have? How is working with you going to make their, enhance the value of their human capital and their future opportunities? And in the meantime, we all spend so much time at work, invest so much of ourselves into work. And so it's natural for the expectations then of what the opportunity is while you're there to be going beyond that, to be looking at, all right, well, what is the the whole package and the range of benefits that I'm getting from this company, and how are they helping to take care of me? So it's, obviously there's a lot of some generational shift and consumerization of the workplace that's going on. I think employers need to be thinking about this.
And Dave, so generation shift, the Gen X, Gen Z, and Gen Alpha have hit the workforce now, and their relationship to work is different from our relationship to work, and their expectations for their comp and benefits are different too. What are you seeing there that's changing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's always tough to pull out exactly what's a generational shift versus, okay, this is kind of affecting everybody or cohorts as they go through life. I think that's partially why we talk so much about personalization, right? How do you provide structures that allow for people to personalize what benefits that they're having access to, customize what type of career path and opportunities they're taking through a company? Because there's not just one, all right, here is the Gen Alpha expectation, and if you just do this one thing, you're set. People's preferences are going to be a really wide range.
And Sean, what about you? Like, Dave's talking about the personalization. What are you seeing that's changed over time, and what do you think people are getting wrong or organizations are getting wrong about comp and benefits right now?
I mean, the challenges that we all face is the cost, ever increasing cost for our benefits and wages. The pressures are there, and so it's not getting wrong, but it's really, I think there's a personalization, but I think it's what we're seeing more is focus. And we talk with mental health, well-being, wellness. What does that look like beyond just contest? But it's really about understanding the human center. Like, we all go through stuff, right? There are things that happen to us through our journey in life, and how do we as an organization, what are those supports and things that we offer around wellness, mental health, financial wellness, etc., that helps us through our different journeys and when those moments might happen and when it matters the most. That's where you start to get that connection, that story. Like, when I went through a hard time, my company was there for me, or my team was there for me, right? And so yes, benefits, access to things, care, pay time off when I need it most, so that it doesn't run out. Sorry, you only get a day. Sorry that family member passed away, but you just get a day, come back. Like, when you start to lose the human centerpiece. And so when we look at our total rewards programs and the benefits included in that time off programs, it's putting the kind of that human-centered lens. Where does this feel like when you actually have to execute that plan or that benefit? How does that feel, right? What would that employee, what would their family feel, right? And will they get the right coverage? We worked a lot on like short-term disability design programs. How does that claims manager or team manage a mental health related or short-term disability case? Are they declining things? Are they actually doing all the steps, right, that you expect as an employer to talk to the manager, get the right information? I've seen many times in my career where things are getting declined, and then when things get escalated, actually should have been approved. Think of the stress on that employee and their family, right? They got declined. So for me, it's the really making sure we have obviously our design programs, but also processes and stress testing. Try the EAP line. How does that feel from our short disability claims? What's the script they're asking those disability providers or claims reviewers to use with your employees? What are the resources that you could say? Make sure you share all these other things we offer, right, to our employees when they're going through this. And so, yeah, I think it's those things that are really important. That just sometimes we don't always know it's going to support somebody when it matters the most, right? And I think that sometimes we don't want to miss that piece. And I think that's not getting it wrong, but sometimes we're just so stretched that sometimes it's just the bandwidth. So that's what we kind of come in as saying, how can we help you look and optimize your what you're offering and how it's being executed, right? And is actually making that difference and having that return on your investment.
Yeah, the human-centered design is also a really good point. Like, certainly personalization, thinking about the employees, what they want, when they want it. And I mean, like, one of the things I see is a lot of benefits are unused. We see that because we're tracking that kind of information as well. And what that's telling me is sometimes organizations are kind of checking the box with like the benefits, or not perfectly connecting the dots between what the business goals and objectives are. Like, is it aggressive hiring? Is it retention? Is it like something else? And really tying both comp and benefits to those things, right? Like long-term incentives or equity, et cetera, could be great way to keep people for the long term, but so could the right mix of benefits too, and at the right time, as you talked about too. So
Yeah.
We do see that as a gap. So I think those are all really good points. Maybe Dave, shifting it back to you a little bit. So that's the current state of the union. So what are you seeing that's resonating with employees in 2025? And are there any frameworks or structures that you use? And Sean hinted some of the things that he does as well around guiding organizations to build the right set of benefits and balancing benefits with comp.
Yeah. Well, so I think about looking at employee outcomes, at business outcomes, at financial outcomes. So going and thinking about, all right, well, what does it mean? Like Sean was talking about, what does something mean for an individual employee, right? What does it mean when, they are going through a really tough time in their life? Maybe they're taking care of someone in their family who's had an illness, right? What does it mean in that moment for them? What does it mean for the business, right? And having people productive and, whatever the priorities you're setting as a business, how are you linking it to the benefits and the comp decisions you're making? And then the financial. So how are you, there's a lot of things that we all want to do, and there's constraints. And so making sure that you're working within those constraints. I think having multiple ways of understanding what's important to employees. I think about different tools, rely on surveys, on focus groups, rely on a lot on really strong HR business partners who know their organizations and what's happening and can really help make sense of some of the other quantitative data. So really kind of drawing from a range of signals and, not just operating on, what was the last, what was the last article I saw that said, hey, this is the hot new thing, or who is just shouting the loudest?
Yeah, that some cool, great points there, Dave. Like even if there is research, even if there are surveys, that's a good baseline. But I want to echo that sentiment. Like you want your HRBPs to have a pulse on the ground with the teams. What are people actually valuing? What are they talking about in the organization?
Yeah.
Are the benefits and is the comp driving the right behavior? And then similarly, I would extrapolate to the talent team, the recruiting team. What's resonating with candidates as well, and like what's working, what's not working. Especially around, with comp, you can get pretty immediate signals there for sure. So having that feedback loop, being iterative and kind of pulse on the ground, I think that's a great point. And so, Dave, look, maybe a follow-up question. And how do you think about balancing fairness in comp and benefits versus, you talked about personalization for the financial aspect of it as well. How do you think through that?
It's one of the reasons why I've come to really love benefits. I grew up as an HR person being very convinced that benefits were the most boring part of HR that I never wanted to touch. And over time, I just have learned, I think, it's back to what Sean was talking about, right? Human-centered approach and how much it can connect an individual with the company and be really meaningful in their lives. Honestly, it's challenging to do it in some aspects of compensation, right? Because you need to have your cash, your equity grounded in a rigorous structure. You need to have the decisions grounded in really rigorous and consistent assessment of performance. And to get the outcomes that you want and have trust from employees that they're being treated fairly, it's really important to have those things. And so there are places where companies, I do think, get themselves in trouble by trying to offer choice in the wrong places, right? Some of the ideas around like cash versus equity trade-offs that can wind up creating some really big challenges for companies. I think on the cash and equity compensation side, it's more around customization and choice and personalization in someone's career journey, and helping them to understand how compensation outcomes for them relate to that so that they can make choices around how they want to pursue, right? Maybe, okay, I want to be, much more intentional around working towards a promotion from engineer to senior engineer, right? If I understand how the comp structure works, then I can make those decisions that really guide my own career journey in a way that makes sense for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember like a couple of years back, when Netflix rolled out this program where you could move the dial from, 100% cash to 100% equity. And there are a number of other companies that tried that, including some of the companies I work with that got to at least like the 90% of the dial. And it sounds good on paper, and maybe a company like Netflix can pull it off, but most organizations can't, and it doesn't necessarily ultimately drive the right behaviors you think it will. But Dave, like what you said was like really struck out is you want to think about like where's the employee, where are they in their life, but also where are they in their career ladder. And like, if you're thinking about retention and engagement and motivation and all of those things with employees, there's many other levers. Are they in the right job? Are they in the right role? Are they getting promoted? Are they getting the right projects? Are they getting the right feedback? It's not really just about like, am I giving you a 4-year equity grant and then you're going to stick around for it? Like,
Right.
Yes, that's only a part of it, but all those other pieces matter and matter more. Those are great points there. Sean, maybe kind of passing the ball to you. What are some like tactical examples of perks, benefits, like levers that you've suggested pulling in a few different situations? If you have any examples, like, what drives retention, what drives engagement, what drives hiring, like what
I know. And it's such it kind of varies. I mean, just to kind of add to what Dave was saying, I think there's two kind of concepts that are really important that I was taught years ago from executives that I take with me, and just to share those two, and it really applies here. One is, you think about the total rewards, everything that's offered. So kind of 4 buckets. So my rewards, my opportunity, right, to grow, develop, the leadership and the environment, the tools, all those things, how we actually interact with the environment. So rewards, opportunity, leadership, environment, role, right? And kind of, there's also an acronym there that you could brand this stuff. But it's all those pieces together and really being intentional about what those are, what does it mean, how are we offering them? And then the other big structure kind of framework is the sweet spot. So we think about those 3 forces, right? What's the market doing? What's my business strategy, affordability? And what are our employees saying, right? So when you think about, well, what's going to work for me? What's going to drive engagement, retention? First, you understand like those principles of it's never going to make everybody happy, but you want to figure out that sweet spot, and it can change over time. And so if there's old world at work journals, and this is from years ago, that's one of my favorites, about this transformational dialogue, this ongoing dialogue, as mentioned earlier, that you need to keep having. Like, and this is never going to go away. I've been doing this for 25 years. It'll be the same thing. Is you have to connect. You have to understand what's driving engagement in one maybe business unit or high retention versus others, or certain job families, or certain you really need to go under the hood a little bit and understand your data, like what's the starting point, what is good retention. So I work for retailers. 70% retention of commission salespeople was great. So there are dynamics of understanding your data to figure out then how do I drive retention engagement. Well, what does it look like compared to myself, compared to the peer market, those pieces. And so when we think about some of the programs, the flexible work arrangement topic comes up around like this whole return to office versus hybrid. It's hot right now, right? You see the articles, US and Canada, bigger firms kind of putting a line in the sand. You can see the other side going, but what about accommodations? What about, I was hired during the pandemic. This is hot. So where organizations kind of go on that side in terms of full return to work or hybrid, some flexibility, I think is very important to figure out for your organization, aligned to your strategy, how you talk about it, some organizations will say, in 3 years, you're going to come back to me. Like I see examples where it's a multi-year notice. So I figure that's a piece where you think about engagement retention. If I know it's going to change, but it's a few years out, I'm good for now, but I might leave. And then am I okay as an executive team with some turnover, right? So I think there's pieces around that flexible work arrangement piece in terms of what that means for your organization and where you go. Are you going to wait and see? where things happen. So that's huge. We talk about our friends, or you go and have conversations on the weekend. That's a big one. A lot of employees are talking about this. Managers are like, well, I still want to accommodate that situation. They've got a new kid at home. Like, can I break the rule a little bit for this employee? They're still getting all their stuff done. That's the real talk. That's where you need to make sure before you make those policy changes, it's really understand what's happening and figuring out what that right balance is for your organization. So that's a huge one, I would say. The other big ones around kind of that learning development support, professional development. We see organizations really from a strategy of we need to get new people out of trade schools or with certain certificates or education. How can I support them in their educational assistance earlier? Get to know us. We're going to support your education. Then come join us, right? So we're creating those relationships while they're still in those schools, and support them on that in terms of entry points. And then as they ongo and figuring out how we support professional development, like that's an investment in those, your employees. Though I agree, are people staying 20, 30 years in organizations? There's a lot more the gig kind of like, I'll have this relationship with you for a little while. And now we're in a place where people will shop, right? And they're going to actually, 2 years is good. I'm going to go somewhere else. And it becomes more of the norm. And so it is, let's just have the best relationship we can have, employer-employee. Let's be honest and transparent and grow together. And if you go, all the best to you, hope you come back. And having those kind of mature adult versus the, I can't believe you left us. And that creates a different, people serve 10 years of a company and they leave and then they feel like, wow, I didn't even it felt weird to leave. And I didn't feel that I maybe want to go back. And so I think there's an important piece that we need to think about how we support development, but then having that mature conversation and going, welcome back anytime. It's okay that people go and may come back. And I think that matters from managers and leaders and how we educate and coach, right? That it's okay. It's not to take it so personally sometimes. I can't believe they left me in a bind. Like, think about what that moment means, and it might just wipe all the good stuff that you had with that employee, that relationship. It really is important. And I think I've seen organizations do it well, where they're like, you graduated from us, all the best, and welcome back. And people will come back because of the culture. It really starts at the top and how that's set versus one's going, never hire them again. I can't believe they left us. It's a very different culture. And that regardless of pay and benefits. Talk about, what's going to really drive retention and engagement. Those things matter because people talk. I can't believe they treated so-and-so like that. They gave 10 years of their career and then they were kind of, so I think it's real talk about this stuff. And I think organizations that talk about it and figure out what their position is and coach managers and how to show up makes a huge difference.
And like the real talk, having the real conversations, and also having the culture is what keeps people around, and also sometimes, to your point, Sean, brings them back boomerangs.
I think it's one of the most under-tracked HR metrics.
Yeah,
that's a really good point, Dave. At least it makes me think of when I was at Salesforce. I mean, now it's almost a decade ago, but it was like the peak times at Salesforce. I can't talk about it as much now, but so many people in 2015, 2014, left, came back. I'm making up a number, but it felt anecdotally like somewhere about a fifth of the people were actually boomerangs that either went out and came back, or it's a bigger organization, but there was a lot of internal mobility programs. So instead of it being, hey, I'm just going to, maybe I'm not happy in this role, I'm not growing, I'm not getting what I need, I'm going to look outside. They really, really encouraged and protected and supported people moving from one team to another team, one project to another project. It was pretty amazing. And that's why people stayed there for a long, long time, at least back in the day. So that's the other thing that kind of comes to mind. Dave, since Sean kind of brought this up, it's a hot topic, like the RPO piece of it.
Let's go there. Come on, Dave.
Luckily, I have the answer that solves it for everyone.
It's a really interesting topic. I think it's fascinating.
I get that.
It is, yeah. I mean, I think the most important thing is to make a clear decision that you've aligned the leadership around and that you're willing to stand behind. Mm-hmm. I think that there's a lot of logic to an organized hybrid that's 2 or 3 days a week on the same days, I do think that that's what I see as a model that many companies are, attempting to build and have as their standard. But precisely because of that, it means that there is space in the market for another set of companies to hold really fast to a fully virtual strategy, and in doing so be able to pick up a lot of talent that might be deciding to leave the companies that are going back into the office. So there's not necessarily one right decision, but it is important to make a decision and know why you're making it. And know the risks, line up the rest of your strategy with that, right? Your comp structure and your benefits, and think about how are those pieces supporting what we've set out as the future plan for the company. If you're bringing people back into the office, there should be a real reason for them there, and the benefits should be supporting that as well.
And so then how do you, and maybe Sean, I'll direct this to you, whether it's RTO or the benefits and perks you roll out, you have a framework, you execute on it, you roll out these programs. How do you measure and track that? Because ultimately, we've been talking about, has to be a feedback loop, and you have to learn and evolve as an organization. What do you suggest organizations do from a metric?
There's a few. I think it gets down to utilization of data, right? So obviously working with your benefit providers to figure out who's using it, but actually what we're seeing more is layer in demographics from DEI perspective. So we're seeing a lot more organizations starting, if they have the ability, time, data, to actually think about where the utilization might break down, not just by job or level, city, but actually from a demographic, right? So think about gender or the ethnic background, and are there unintended things that are happening in terms of access to our benefits? So utilization with the DEI lens and kind of looking at that is huge. Focus groups, interviews, talking to people about what's working, what do we need just to play in the market space for benefits, where we want to win. And sometimes through those conversations, people realize, oh, we have that. So there's a whole, we do like a total rewards kind of survey, but also those focus groups. That's where you start to see the wide eyes going, oh, I didn't even know we had that. so I think there's an opportunity in that kind of discovery period, right? Where you get a sense of educating what we actually have, and then you get to hear what's hot for them and what's kind of on that preference piece. There's a lot of good market data. I think the key is where you're getting your market data and aligning it kind of from your compensation strategy. So a lot of times you see differences, like we're using this industry revenue, whatever, for comp, but we might do something completely different for benefits. So I like to challenge those and bring them together and say, well, why would we use different data cuts in industries, or right? And there may be an intentional behind that. We want to use all industries for benefits, but we want just our industry for whatever that makes sense, but be intentional. A lot of times it's not intentional. They're just different benchmarking. So I like to make sure that they're, and within that going, understanding where you are in your journey, because it's like, what does good look like? What does P50 benefits? What does that mean? So defining it really well and thinking about it from each element, you got to break that down, because sometimes you might be over. So we usually, you kind of want to build a bit of that kind of grid of well, we're above on retirement, but we're low on this, and we're high. So you need that bit of, and that really helps as an executive team, as an HR team, understand overall we're this, but these are where maybe there's some gaps. So those, and really, obviously benefit providers and insurance can give you some intel against that and how you compare. But where do you go with that data, right? And how do you use then that employee input data, what your strategy is to kind of work through that. That's the biggest piece. And I would say, just because we're on it, I think understand how much you're spending on services and contracts and commissions and fees with benefits. There's usually some money in there sometimes if you're on a full commission model versus a fixed rate. Please go look at it, because there could be dollars. There usually is dollars to go from a commission-based model with your benefits provider to a fixed fee, and then you can redeploy those dollars into your employees' benefits. So just while I have the mic, just please make sure you talk to your benefit broker, understand your fee agreement, please, because there could be dollars on the table, and I've found at least, the last company was like $90,000 a year in extra fees. They're a 2,000 person employer. So there is dollars. It's bigger as you become a bigger employer, but if you don't check it, you're a cash cow for them, and they'll just keep renewing you and renewing you. And you got a deal. We discounted your disability by this rate, but the starting rate was already there. There's a just really, not to get too much on it, but that benefit space in terms of where the fees are and that annual negotiation, really understanding how that all works, very important as an employer to not be afraid of learning how it works, to see maybe where there's opportunity.
Yeah, I think like just learning it and digging in is key. And as you scale and change, I think that's great tips there, Sean. The other thing you mentioned earlier was around the communication. And one of the things, at least we see at CandorIQ, is there's a pretty major disconnect in terms of communicating total rewards to employees and candidates. A lot of time, the company has like amazing set of like compensation structure, like base, but beyond the base, like bonus and variable and like other accelerators and like equity. And employees don't necessarily perfectly understand those levers. They have a ton of benefits and perks, and they don't know how to maximize them. And there are so many times we see a conversation where the employee is like, "Hey, what do I do? It's my equity is going to be fully vested, and a stock option. I didn't purchase the equity. Like, what should I do last minute?" Like that conversation, our customers' HR teams have a lot. Or, hey, I only selected the healthcare benefits, vision, dental, and general healthcare. I didn't take advantage of these different things. So even having employees understand their comp and benefits, having managers understand the comp and benefits, because ultimately, HR can't just keep, even when there's FAQs, people don't necessarily absorb this information.
Well, I love a good FAQ. Come on.
I mean, I think, managers are the messengers in so many cases. And so making sure that they really understand the comp philosophy, and they don't need to be a benefits expert, but at least understanding the philosophy and the broad mix of what's available, so that they can help explain to the employee. But it's also where I'm really excited around some of the applications of AI, whether that's through some of the various benefits platforms out there, or just directly for the HR team. One of the things that's so much easier is just the ability to create content, to create the FAQ in 30 seconds, and also to turn it into a video and put out multimedia content. I think benefits and total rewards is one of the key places to think about that.
There's examples of companies even in and I agree, Dave. Like, I think technology is there to really improve our marketing. It's really a marketing lens, right? You think about your customer being the employee. There's some other great examples where I've seen where we've used, like, employees are actually building content too. Like, let's go build a video, like a video campaign, and we'll have a contest for talking about our new 401k and the matching. So we saw this where we had a contest, create a cool video, put it on YouTube, and talk about, this 401. It was these like little mini movies, right? It's beyond my creative. Like, I stop it, But I think there's a sense here of like empower your employees in to think about how you do your benefits and total rewards communication. Have fun with it. Like, do something different. This video campaign, the enrollment went up. People understood the matching, right, and how that worked. But it was through a fun way of engaging our employees to help us market and explain it in a simple way. I mean, and that's the stuff that really matters, right? Like, oh, that's way better than a pamphlet or a brochure, and yes, your website needs to be clear in your, how you navigate, but those kind of just thinking outside the box and be a little more creative and engage your employees. Like, it's amazing what they're like, oh, I love doing it. It's incredible, whether it's your marketing team or a broader group of employees, to enlist them.
That's true. And so as you're putting these together, Dave, you mentioned this before, like finance, business, and employee, you kind of have to triangulate across these different things, because also obviously there's some certain limitations. And question for both of you, how do you kind of balance those three different things? How do you get them in equilibrium?
Do you want to go first, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with partnership. I mean, the relationship that I've had with my counterparts in finance from day one is one of the relationships that I've always invested in most, because there are going to be limits, and you want to be able to be sitting down with that person and ultimately advising the CEO or other decision makers, but you want to be able to sit down with that person and really hash through what the trade-offs are, and get onto the same page, even if you have ultimately some differing views on exactly what decisions should be made. Getting to clear and aligned understanding of what is the cost and our spend across different categories, and what are we trying to accomplish that, and what are the limits that we're working within. And I think that it's the opportunity as well for building a much broader relationship with the finance leader that's important across a range of topics, even when it's not compensation, right? Yeah. They're going to be a key stakeholder in so many of the topics that that the HR leader is working on. I think being able to speak in financial language, understand the financial implications, and build trust during some of the compensation discussion, I found is really important for setting up a successful partnership across a lot of other topics with them.
Yeah, and Sean, those are good points. What's your take, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's the understanding the business first, right? I mean, that's and sitting with finance, understand the P&L and how dollars come in and goes out, and understand what the pressures are. So to me, it's kind of small, like, what's the strategy? What's our structure? The people rewards. Like, you can't just go fix reward programs without understanding strategy and our structure and workforce planning and where are we going? What are the talents we need today, but also going forward? Where are we headed? And sometimes it's not as much of a forecast. Maybe it's not 5 years anymore. It's like 2 to 3. Like, it's becoming the horizon for planning different. And then how do we think about where we actually want to transform the business versus optimize or just keep the lights on? So we really want to make sure we're aligning whatever we're doing in rewards, that larger business strategy, the talent strategy within that. And sometimes things take time. And so it's a building block. And so whenever we do this work, it's thinking about some of the base ones are, do we understand our jobs? Do we understand base salary? Do I think about all those components and why they exist? What is this base pay for? What's the bonus for? What's it driving? What's the equity for? Are we double dipping in things, right? Where's the governance on that? Who gets to sign off on a sign-on bonus or a special, right? Where are the special deals? Let's go. Yeah. Where are the bodies buried? Let's talk about it and have real conversations, right? So that we can have those three pieces of the market, the strategy, what employees are saying, and set that up. And even if you're a small organization, you can still have the kind of a mini total rewards steering committee or an executive that's talking about HR, talent, and total rewards. So you can say, you know what, let's talk about benefits for this time. Let's talk about time off programs. Let's bring in the right leadership. And then an organization I worked at, we also had a management council. So it was kind of mid-level managers from different parts talking about the data. What are we seeing in turnover, absenteeism? Yeah. What are we seeing? And getting their insights going, I think it's because of that, or well, that's interesting. I didn't know that we offer, so even engaging mid-level managers in a kind of a mini version of a total rewards kind of council or group keeps the conversation going and allows you to kind of really then connect the dots. And the last thing I've seen work really well is where CEOs or executives spend time with employees, right? They really, from an engagement perspective, whether it's through an engagement teams or how you do that, but sure. When it works really well is when those CEOs are like, I want to talk to the employees directly. Like, hey, I saw this in the survey. What does that mean out here in the warehouse or up north on a field in a site? What does that mean on a, I wish we were Marine, on a tugboat, right? Let's go talk to the
same level of attention and depth as the product you're manufacturing or building, kind of.
And as HR, I should be boots on the ground. I should get out there, right? And that's where you start to go, now I understand. Because they're not going to read any. So I think that's that collaboration at that. And then you kind of bring, and then you're constantly in that flow of input, intel, conversation. You're having transformational dialogue because forces don't stay steady. They continually shift. There's things that are happening outside or in our organization. And so when you think about, big technology changes or big reorgs, that has huge impact for people's mental health and kind of how they do their work and impact of processes. So you'll see it in your own data. Oh yeah, that's when we implemented that new ERP. absenteeism went up, sick days went up, right? Oh, we had a big reorg, and the same thing. So you'll see spikes. And I think the data that you could bring to those executives around, those key metrics, whatever they are for you, but those are important,
Sure.
like absenteeism or sick day usage, and connect them to business initiative strategy and success, right? Whether it's, did revenue go up when we did that? Did safety improve, right? Are we seeing information that's really important for them, right? Is our safety numbers, our revenue, did profit shift when we implemented that program? Did anything happen? And that's fascinating to me, because I think that's where it starts to go, should we make a change somewhere, right? So, yeah.
Awesome. Team, I know we're near time, so let's do a wrap up. There's so much to talk about. It's a lot of good topics.
I could go all day. Sorry.
We could go all day for sure. So Sean, let's go with you. Like, what were your key takeaways that you want to highlight today?
I think the biggest thing is going to be about the human-centered piece, right? Really not losing sight of that. What does that mean in your organization and for your workforce? And balancing that with, be generous where you can, but also be mindful of cost, right? And I think it's just that balance, and that it's not an off-the-shelf program. It really has to understand, but then what makes sense for you as an organization, and then set up that framework for good transformational dialogue, right? At the executive, through employees, to inform your total word strategy, and then it doesn't all get done in a year. It does take time, so you have to kind of build that plan. So those are kind of my big from today and how we approach our work. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, those are great ones. And Dave, what would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the closing thoughts for me would be, benchmarking is critical, but informed by the business context and your strategy on where you want to be, and get rigorous on performance when you need to make trade-offs and decisions on cash and equity. It's a lot of what it comes down to, and figure out how to bring in choice and personalization and customization in benefits, in careers, and support people with the right leadership, because in the end, the manager is going to be the messenger on a lot of things.
I think those are great. The last thing I'll add is communication and education, making people understand. So like having great comp and benefits gets you so far, but you need to make sure employees understand those, appreciate them, and leverage them. You want to empower the managers so they understand them and they can drive that. And ultimately, it's like the culture, the environment, the career opportunities, all of the things that you create is what's ultimately going to bring people in and keep them there for the long term, and sometimes even boomerang or move around. But it's really that you can be formulaic, and it's good to have a philosophy and structure, but also ultimately, yes, it's these are very human decisions. So that was a great session. I love the jam back and forth. For folks on the call, Sean Raible, Game Plan CA. We'll have information in the LinkedIn as well. People Catalyst, Dave Carhart. If you're interested in jamming about compensation, benefits, workforce planning, many different HR programs, tool implementation, both of them have done it all and done it across many different sectors, industries as well. So thank you both for joining the webinar today and sharing all your insights.
Thank you. Appreciate being part of this.
Yeah.